of Women Voters of Winchester. The first thing very much I'd like to say, other than good evening, is please check your cell phones, and if you could silence them now, I would appreciate it. So my name is Cheryl Shepard, and it is my pleasure to represent the League as we bring you this evening's event. This year, we prepared our online voter guides and solicited public input for debate questions in collaboration with Winchester News. We thank them for working with us to solicit public concerns, develop educational material for voters, and publicize our candidate forums. And they are here this evening with an informational table, so please stop by. We thank the Cummings Foundation for generously supporting this forum, the Jenks Center for allowing us to use this beautiful space, and WinCam for broadcasting and streaming it to the public over local cable TV channels and the WinCam website. The recording will be available later for viewing on the WinCam website and on YouTube. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization with a mission to promote informed participation by all eligible voters and public understanding of major policy issues. We do not support or oppose any candidates or political parties. We do study and take positions about major policy issues. We are organized at the national, state, and local levels. Our policy positions and activities can be reviewed on the respective websites. If this forum and our mission meets your needs or even inspires you, we encourage you to donate or become a member. All people may join, and student membership is free. This year in Winchester, there are contested seats on the Planning Board, the Select Board, and the School Committee. All candidates who are debating this evening and a week from today, the candidates who are running unopposed, and many of the candidates for town meeting have generously provided the League and Winchester News with information about themselves and about their candidacies. You may find these candidate profiles on our website at lwvwinchester.org and at winchesternews.org. On that site, click the red election guide box in the upper right-hand corner. So thank you, candidates, for submitting your profiles for these online voter guides. Many of the candidates are available here to meet the voters before and after our formal debate this evening and next week. So with that, this evening's debate will be moderated by Nell Forgas. Nell is a trained League moderator and a member of the League of Women Voters of Sudbury.
Good evening. 3 candidates are running for 2 3-year positions on the Planning Board. Is it on? I'll be louder. Thank you. So three candidates are running for 2 3-year positions on the Planning Board. The Planning Board is established by Massachusetts law. Among the Planning Board's responsibilities are drafting zoning bylaw revisions, undertaking planning studies, updating the town's comprehensive master plan, and making recommendations to the Winchester Zoning Board of Appeals and about petitions before it for zoning relief. The candidates are Nicholas Rosettos and Carrie Layton, who are both incumbents, and Amy Beliveau. The rules for the debate are as follows. Each candidate will have up to 90 seconds for an opening statement. The order of speaking was determined ahead of time by a random method. After the first question, I will ask the candidates a series of prepared questions in rotating order. Each candidate will have up to 90 seconds for each answer. After each set of answers, the candidates may request a rebuttal. Should any candidate choose to rebut, each candidate will have up to 30 seconds to do so. Personal references about other candidates or other people are out of order. After our final question, each candidate will have up to 60 seconds for a closing statement. The closing statements will be given in reverse order from the opening statements. Our timekeepers are seated in the first row. They will hold up a yellow placard when the speaker has 15 seconds left and a red placard when their time is finished. We will now start with the opening statements. You will have 90 seconds each. We'll begin with Mr. Rosettos.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is Nick Rosettos. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here in front of you all. Over the past 4 years, I've worked on bringing mixed-use developments to Winchester. In 2024, I was part of the board that unanimously approved the affordable housing mixed-use development at Waterfield. Following that, I worked on new zoning to comply with the state's MBTA 3A requirements and new zoning for North Main Street. Importantly, we do not have to sacrifice our historic downtown character to achieve these goals. While collecting signatures at the dump, I had people come up to me worried about what's going to happen with all these zoning changes. Will North Main Street become a futuristic canyon? Will it look like Route 1 Saugus? It could. If re-elected to the planning board, I will work proactively to guide necessary growth so that it enhances rather than detracts from the beauty and historic character of our town. Achieving that balance requires experience, financial judgment, design sensitivity, and strong working relationships, including with the Design Review Committee and Historical Commission, to whom I was liaison and attended meetings, all of which I bring to the table. Growth and preservation are not mutually exclusive. However, achieving both requires experience, judgment, and sustained effort. Maintaining the look and feel of Winchester while accommodating necessary development is not a given. It takes committed oversight.
Thank you. Ms. Beliveau, 90 seconds to you.
I'd like to start off by thanking everyone here, the League of Women Voters, the Jenks for hosting tonight's debate, my fellow candidates, and WinCam for making it possible for residents to attend virtually. I'm Amy Beliveau. I've been a Winchester resident for 6 years, but have been coming to Winchester to visit family for decades. I decided to run for the planning board because I have a natural interest in real estate and development and have years of industry experience and knowledge to contribute to the board. I am a town meeting member proudly representing Precinct 7, a member of the EFPBC, and served as an at-large member of the State of the Town Committee, and will bring this knowledge and experience to the board as well. I believe that Winchester can and should grow thoughtfully and can do so in a way that honors the historical aesthetic of our town. With an updated master plan and zoning bylaw and a more robust design review process, we can bring new housing opportunities to Winchester across both market rate and affordable, as well as welcome new businesses. Thoughtful growth in housing and commercial bases will also generate new tax revenue that will help fund programs that are essential and important to Winchester. I look forward to hearing your questions and being able to share more of my views with all of you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Layton, 90 seconds.
Thank you to the moderators, to the League of Women Voters, to Amy and Nick for running, to everyone who's engaged in local politics. I'm asking for your vote for re-election to the planning board. It would be my second term. I love the work. It is hard, it is interesting, and it is all of the best people, even on the worst days. I was introduced to the planning board through the Master Plan Steering Committee for 2020, and I loved that work. Getting town priorities organized into action points was fantastic, and I very much want to take the experience that I have from the past 3 years on the planning board and apply that to our vision for 2040. I came onto the planning board from the Conservation Commission, where I learned the mechanics of the Wetlands Protection Act and more about our natural resource areas, right when we were passing the MBTA 3A Communities Act, which increased multifamily housing around our train station. We merged that effort with rezoning North Main Street. I was able to chair that year. It was a group project. I was merely the taskmaster that got it handed in. But we were able to pass by an overwhelming margin based on the strength of our community engagement. Again, that's what I love, listening to people and turning it into action points. We have a lot of work to do, making sure that we're holding ourselves accountable to the master plan for 2030, so wrapping up details from that one, and then looking ahead to the work that we have to do going forward. We have more work to do on affordable housing, protecting our historic resources, and defining our visions for 2040.
Thank you. I will now ask a series of questions that were prepared by the League of Women Voters of Winchester with extensive input from the public. The questioning will end at 7:50 to allow for closing statements, even if not all of the questions have been asked. So first question, how would you balance imperatives to develop more housing and commercial building with residents' concerns about scale and the character of the town. Ms. Beliveau, you have 90 seconds.
I don't agree. I don't believe that you need something to be small to be historic. And I don't believe that you need something to be big to offer the wealth of housing opportunities for our residents and for future neighbors. We need to focus on the design when we're thinking about things like scale. You can have a single family home that is modest on its lot and knock it down and build something that maximizes the FAR. And I think that that poses a risk to the historic nature of our town, as well as buildings that people are maybe fearful of in, you know, the CBD or near the transit stations. I think that design can make something feel very big and very obtrusive, and I think design can also be done tastefully to make something feel like it belongs, and that is what I would like to see happen in Winchester. I think we need housing. There's demand for people moving to town. There's demand for people wanting to stay here post-retirement. We need the units, affordable housing. I'd love to see more of that come, and I think if we focus on the design of what we have, how to maintain that, and the history of what's here, we can achieve all of it together.
Thank you. Ms. Layton, 90 seconds.
Do you mind rereading the question just so I?
Absolutely. How would you balance imperatives to develop more housing and commercial building with residents' concerns about scale and the character of the town?
Okay, great, thank you. So we have lots of examples of that so we completed the North Main Street rezoning, and we're seeing applications come through the planning board. So we're getting a very sort of boots on the ground experience of what that looks like. And we worked very hard to make sure, as we updated our bylaws, that we thought about the size and the scale of each very small section of the street, because each neighborhood demands different considerations. And as the applications are coming through, we're meeting with neighbors, and a lot of the safety concerns are around things that require sort of cross-board collaboration, so parking issues, street issues, and we're working on some of those. I think the most important thing we can do is listen to neighbors and listen to residents and make sure that we're balancing that with the interests of developers, so that we're not making projects sort of too difficult to move forward or too economically infeasible for the developer. I think that there's also a need to support homeowners who are away from our sort of commercial areas and make sure that changes to the home that will allow them to adapt to changing use of the home, working from home more, having more multi-generational families, removing some of the hurdles to getting those changes done is also important in terms of welcoming people to our community.
Thank you. Mr. Rosettos, how would you balance imperatives to develop more housing and commercial building with residents' concerns about scale and the character of the town? 90 seconds.
I think it's natural. Many residents have misgivings about new development and scale and what the buildings are going to look like. In other communities, you see some buildings that wouldn't fit in here, and I think people worry about that. I think it's extremely important that we work together with groups such as the Design Review Committee, to whom I'm the liaison and to whom I work very closely, as well as the Historical Commission, and work closely with developers to come up with designs that will really, for lack of a better word, just be a beautiful addition to the historic character of the town. I think developers are doing some amazing things. They've brought down the costs of some very high quality work and some details like brackets and all the things that make a building have the character that detail's important, and all of those details are going to contribute to a building that people like, and then it creates a virtuous cycle because they see one building going up and then they say, well, that looks great, let's have more. And I think that's something that we can really do in the next 3 years. So I think the experience that I have working with the Design Review Committee, my interest in historic architecture going back to '78, and all of what I've done in the past 4 years would contribute to that.
Thank you. Next question. How would you attract and promote proposals to develop opportunity areas listed in the current master plan such as the town center, Holton Street, and North Main Street. Ms. Layton, 90 seconds.
You listed Holton, Main Street, and your third area.
Sorry, town center,
Town
Holton
center.
Street, and North Main Street.
Okay, great, thank you. So from the master plan, we've achieved the multi-use district on Main Street, and we're seeing those applications come in. So we know when the zoning is friendly and the process is clear, developers are interested in working with us. One of the major pivots that I would like to see the planning board make is be very clear and upfront in how we approach developers, so that we're making very specific asks. That is something that we worked into the Main Street rezoning, and we're a little less clear about it in the CBD, and we have lots of work to do at the Holton Cross intersection. So if we're inviting someone to come to develop the CBD, we need to have a pre-application meeting where we're saying, these are our affordable housing requirements, this is the aesthetic we're looking for, this is the maximum height capacity, and we need to lead with that because it will save the developer time, it will manage expectations, and it invites community engagement at the beginning of the process instead of months into it. Light industrial, I think we have a lot of work to do adjusting the zoning to make it friendlier for the owners of those very valuable properties to change their buildings if they need to pass them on to the next owner and to enjoy the area. We have work to do with making the sidewalks more accessible, putting more trees to break up some of the heat islands, adjusting the parking requirements to allow building expansion if they need it. We have a lot of work to do in that area, and I think that would impact a lot of people who pass through and who work there.
Thank you. Mr. Rosetto, same question.
Just if you repeat it.
Absolutely. How would you attract and promote proposals to develop opportunity areas listed in the current master plan, such as Town Center, Holton Street, and North Main Street?
I think part of the issue that we're facing today is that some of our zoning regulations are very complicated. Some of them are confusing. I think that we've undertaken a consultant to help us work on that and to make the regulatory environment one that developers will find more conducive to building here. I think we need to have more face-to-face with developers, get to know them, get to know the architects they're using, give them advice on how they can have a successful project in Winchester, and that involves face-to-face outreach. So, I think that we as a board can reach out. We can make the zoning requirements more streamlined, and we can elicit. And we can, I do agree very much with Kerry that we need to get that out in front so that the community has input at the beginning of the process and not at the end when it upends all the work that developers have already done.
Thank you. Ms. Beliveau, how would you attract and promote proposals to develop opportunity areas listed in the current master plan, such as Town Center, Holton Street, and North Main Street?
I agree with pretty much everything that's already been set up here. I think that clear bylaws promote to the development community what is going to be achievable in our town. If our values are laid out within our zoning bylaw and within our master plan, clearly they will take that and know what they can get and what they can't, what our absolute no's are, what our absolute yes please list is. We want things in the CBD to be brick, for example, to honor what that feels like instead of vinyl siding. Maybe that goes into the bylaw, something to that effect. Clarity makes it just easier for everyone to do their job and to do it well. I think in terms of looking at the master plan, I think the master plan and the zoning bylaw have to communicate the values of our community. We can't really have a direction to promote and attract proposals if we don't really know as a community what kind of proposals we want. And I think that that's going to be the biggest step in terms of the go forward plan for Winchester. The master plan is expiring. We will have to come together as a community to figure out what those ideals are for us, and then how do we look at the zoning bylaw to say, does our zoning bylaw align to our new goals? And if we do that, and we're clear to the community of residents and to the community of developers, I think we'll be getting good proposals.
Thank you. Next question. What progress has been made under the housing production plan, And what do you hope to accomplish in furtherance of the HPP? Mr. Rosettos, 90 seconds.
So as you know, we've just completed a large Cambridge Street development, 40B, with a significant number of units. We're pushing really hard to get units in the new development that is going to take place downtown at 10 Converse. We've unanimously approved the 40B at Waterfield. We are working on Washington and Swanton. We've looked at that building. We've gone back and forth on the design. We want it to be a cornerstone example of what beautiful 40B development can look like. We've done all that, but we still have so much more work to do to get there. It's going to be very challenging. We don't have a lot of land. We're going to have to, utilize the density that we've zoned for on North Main Street. Make sure we have inclusionary housing. Make sure those buildings, the massing and the look and all of them are going to fit into the neighborhoods, and people will be happy in those neighborhoods when that happens. We've got to protect those neighborhoods. They're as important as any other neighborhood. But we will have the opportunity to have inclusionary housing there. And then there's some more wacky outside of the box possible solutions that I've been doing a straw poll with some of the folks here. And maybe if we get some traction on some of them, we can have some out-of-the-box ways of getting more housing, multi-unit houses that look like beautiful single-family historic homes. But those are all possibilities down the road.
Thank you. Ms. Belovo, same question.
I think we've been doing great work as a town to build units where we can. Mr. Rosetto's named many of the projects in the pipeline, and we are seeing units and density coming to Winchester. I think in terms of furthering our housing plan, we do hope to see more come on the North Main Street corridor, Holton and Cross, as we mentioned. But I think an opportunity that Winchester needs to kind of get ahead of is thinking about what happens to single-family only zone neighborhoods. Many, maybe not many, but there are communities, there are peers that have gotten rid of single-family only zoning. And I think that eventually that is probably going to be a statewide mandate that we will be looking at. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity in our, not necessarily just where there is natural density around MBTA or maybe in Holton and Cross, but if we look at kind of the breadth of Winchester, how can we be creative in building density, density in those single family neighborhoods? Can you take a home that has mass and size and is historic and say, we will allow multi-unit as long as you don't touch the outside? You can't take it down, you can't build an addition on it, but if you can make the interior multi-unit, maybe we look at updating the zoning bylaw to do something like that. I think it takes creativity to achieve housing density in a space like Winchester where open land is hard to find.
Thank you. Ms. Layton, same question.
Thank you. The housing production plan, I think, was published about a year ago, and we since then have approved Waterfield and Washington and Swanton. So it leaves us, we were about 550 units short. We're still about 400 units short of the state requirement of 10% of units of inventory in our subsidized housing inventory. So, dovetailing on what my fellow candidates have said, the most productive thing we could do is think creatively. I would love to hear Nick's wacky suggestions because I think we're all a little curious, but essentially we're running out of spaces where we can put these large developments, and we want to really be thinking proactively about equitable housing. So we have these high density areas of town, and sort of stacking and stacking small units is not a great way to get there. We want to make sure that we are distributing our efforts through town and thinking about what we have for town assets and to the points of my candidates, if we can be creative about what our existing zoning can flex to receive, so that we're building about 40 units per year over 10 years would get us there. And leveraging opportunities where we have developers who are willing to be flexible would be another opportunity that we need to do a better job with.
Thank you. Next question. How would you evaluate the fiscal implications to the town of proposals to build new housing and commercial structures? Ms. Beliveau, 90 seconds.
Fiscal implications to the town. I think when you're thinking about a fiscal calculation, you have, obviously on one side you have your revenue and on the other side you have your expenses. So if you take a project, we can use 10 Converse right around the corner as an example. The building there today is lightly tenanted. It brings in X number of tax revenue dollars for the town based on the commercial rents in the building. There are also, it is a privately owned land, so the maintenance really would defer more to them. But there are costs involved in anything within Winchester. There's going to be a line of where public meets private and we have to remove snow, that kind of thing, servicing the building if there were a fire, an emergency. So you have to kind of weigh the pros, the costs on that level when evaluating for a new project. It's the same calculation. What is it, mixed use? Is it residential? What is the residential tax rate? What are the units estimated to be as a value? What will the developer or the new homeowner pay in rent? What will they pay for their home? And how will that generate tax dollars for the town? And on the other end, what resources will it then take if we're putting in something that's a little bit more dense? Will it require more snow removal, more parking? What are the environmental tolls? Will there be more trees, less trees? So you have to kind of take all of them into account.
Thank you. Ms. Layton, same question.
Do you mind rereading it? I'm so sorry.
Of course. How would you evaluate the fiscal implications to the town of proposals to build new housing and commercial structures?
Okay, great, thank you. For the question always comes back to us, what can we do with our commercial space? And when we thought about the zoning of North Main, we spent quite a bit of time thinking about the implications of it. The majority, I believe, of our tax base is residential real estate taxes. And we are, the thing that I love about the planning board is that we stay out of the finances of the town, but as an operational body, we have the opportunity to pretty heavily influence it. And so it's sort of this interesting puzzle to put together. So some of the things that we can do to increase tax revenue for the town is allowing these mixed use developments, which technically increases our commercial tax base, the benefit being it doesn't bring students into the school, they tend to maintain their own, all these things. But it also brings the residential tax rate up. So the overall value of that property increases, and that increases our tax base. So making it a little bit easier to make changes to the home and to invite in commercial enterprises will benefit the tax basis. We have capacity in our schools to introduce students. Often we're sort of if you bring in more housing, you bring in more students, but I think that's a huge strength of the town, and it's why people choose the town and choose to invest and live here. So I think that's a worthwhile investment. And beyond that, I'm really happy I stay out of having to balance the town budget.
Thank you. Mr. Rosettos, how would you evaluate the fiscal implication to the town of proposal to build new housing and commercial structures?
I guess I'll start by saying that in my other life, I'm a consulting chief financial officer for emerging life sciences companies. So on a day-to-day basis, I help them manage their day-to-day needs, financial statements, fundraising, and all of the associated work that goes along with that. I would say in this case that developers love residential developments because they're very profitable. The town needs a combination. And so I think what it really boils down to is negotiating on these new developments that are going to come up on North Main Street, giving the right kind of sweeteners to a deal to a developer that would make having mixed use developments worthwhile to them. Some of those benefits are going to accrue strictly to the town. So for instance, if you had an eating establishment or a coffee shop or a bakery, I mean, those would accrue to the town. That would accrue to vibrancy on the street. It may not raise the most rent for developers. So this creates an opportunity to work with developers, negotiate with them, and it's not always easy. But it's something that I'm very committed to achieve the results that we would really like to see in Winchester.
Thank you. Would you like to have a rebuttal?
Yeah, I just wanted
30
to
seconds.
also, I think another thing that we need to think about with fiscal implications, especially as it pertains to the commercial space, is we need to consider what we're offering the town in terms of commercial businesses. I had a really interesting meeting over at the Chamber of Commerce and just kind of hearing what businesses are interested in coming to Winchester. I know the running joke of the taco stand. That would be great. And somebody had actually inquired about a dog grooming facility in town. And I was like, oh, like I know so many people that have dogs in town and we don't have that. And there are actually some zoning bylaw reasons why we can't have that. But I think that is also important to consider fiscally when you're
Thank you.
looking at raising taxes.
Thank you. Ms. Layton, would you like 30 seconds?
I think we've covered it.
Okay, Mr. Rosetta.
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question. Do you think the planning board should recommend any changes to the zoning bylaw as it currently stands? Ms. Layton, 90 seconds.
Only 90 seconds. If I had a month. There are several changes. So we have money designated through the override, so vote yes on the override, to do a comprehensive review of our bylaws. And there are just small gaps. It's a living body. It's a document that gets passed from planning board to planning board, and over the years, small cracks form, and we need to close some of those cracks, and we need to make it modernized and more efficient for executing the will of the town over time. And so there are small things. If your porch abuts your neighbor's fence because you inherited the property and it predated the zoning and you want to scooch it back 5 feet, you've gone from a variance to a variance, but you have to go through you've improved it, you've pulled it further back, but you go through 20 pages of paperwork and 4 committees to get it done. I Ching, I'm looking at you. It's a very time-consuming process. So closing some of those gaps and making sure that it is achieving what we want it to is really important work. It's super boring. I'm so sorry, but we are going to have to bring some changes to town meeting. We'll do our best to make it digestible. So those are some of them. The pre-application process and the CBD, the zoning on North Main Street, we consider flagship zoning. So we would like to drag some of those ideas into the CBD to make the application process more efficient. And again, I'm getting the yellow card, but I could go on for days. But yes, we have work to do.
Thank you. Mr. Rosettos, 90 seconds.
Sure. So as Kerry said, we have engaged, or we will be engaging a consultant that will help us completely revamp the zoning bylaws. I've been in the thick of it for 4 years. We had one gentleman who came in and he had a historic Packard automobile, and he wanted to replace his rickety garage with a nice garage. And it was impossible. It was just ridiculous that we couldn't let this guy have a decent garage for his antique car. And it's just little things like this that I think there's a lot of room for streamlining some of the zoning that just, if you're out by half a foot because you had a pre-existing nonconformity, and then it gets thrown into variance, and then a variance is impossible to rebut. There are certain circumstances where it just doesn't make sense. I mean, we had a historic history for this town where certain norms were established, and then we got rid of those norms, and things just blew up to these massive lots. And I think that there needs to be some kind of a return to maybe the sensibilities where the town was more walkable, maybe a little more dense. But in any case, there is definitely a lot of work to be done in streamlining some of these zoning regulations.
Thank you. Ms. Belleville, same question.
I'm still learning all 184 pages of the zoning bylaw, but what I will say is that having gone through the process of renovating a home, going to the planning board of Winchester to renovate the home I live in now, I do agree that I think there's probably room for improvement in streamlining some things. I drive a Wagoneer. It's enormous. Fitting it into a small garage wouldn't be an option. And for those that know me, I cried happy tears when my garage got erected. So I think we need to be able to offer modern amenities to people within our historic home in a way that doesn't detract, but also recognizes that we live in an era where there are just bigger cars, for example, or a porch or a curved driveway. So backing out of your driveway on a busy road is easier for neighbors. I think that there's probably a lot of minutia and kind of gaps, as Carrie said, to making it just easier for residents. I think making life easier for people that live here and are renovating their single family properties for them to live in or their multifamily properties to live in should be easier. And we also want to make sure updates to the zoning bylaw maybe promote development without making it necessarily too easy. We don't want to just let the guardrails loose and say build whatever you want. That's not at all something I think anybody in this town would agree with. So I think kind of, again, understanding what our overall goals are of the town, whether you're looking at a single family or a development, and making sure the zoning bylaws reflect those goals.
Thank you. Next question. How could the planning board educate the community about the factors it considers when evaluating building project proposals? Mr. Rosettos, 90 seconds.
I'm sorry, please repeat the question.
I will, absolutely. How could the planning board educate the community about the factors it considers when evaluating building project proposals?
One of the projects that I undertook as a member of the planning board was working together with others to put together a brochure that was intended for developers and builders to help them navigate the incredibly complicated process of dealing with historic structures and what's permitted and what's not. And I believe that brochure is right now in the town hall available to developers. So that's the kind of thing that we'll continue to do. When we went out on the Vision 2020, we took some polls, 700 respondents, 91% said they valued the town center. That's the kind of back and forth that we need to continue to foster. We need to be close with our newspapers. Will is here, and we need to put out press releases. We need to support our newspapers. We need to subscribe to them. We need to foster that thing that we kind of lost and we need to get back to start telling people what we're doing, because most people have no idea.
Thank you. Ms. Beliveau, same question.
I'm going to ask you to repeat the question one more time.
How could the planning board educate the community about the factors it considers when evaluating building project proposals?
I'm honestly just so surprised that people are curious to learn about maybe like what the FAR is. I need a second.
They are not.
What was that?
They are not.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to, to me, I'm hearing the question is like, oh, tell me more about FAR. And I'm like, I don't really think that's the intention of the question. But I think the things that I have seen matter the most to residents, I think, are rooted in the design. As much as I could geek out over the FAR calculation, I think people do really care about the scope and the size and the materials used and the impacts any development or a new single family home. I mean, what is, if a home is demolished and then a new home is built in its place, that has an impact on that immediate neighborhood, and that is important as well. So I think educating the community about the factors we consider, the board would consider, I think that the factors the board actually has to consider, like setbacks and FAR and kind of the more boring mathematical calculations, versus the factors that I think maybe matter most to the community, as in design, just needs community outreach, open meetings. I know that the planning board meetings are open and people can come, but you can't actually necessarily engage with the board in those meetings. So finding a way to kind of get feedback more easily.
Thank you. Ms. Layton, same question.
I'm also shocked people don't find this stuff fascinating. People care when it's next door to them. And so some of the most productive suggestions that we have heard pretty recently are during one of the town meeting member association meetings. We talked about communication streams. How do we get any information sort of pushed through to people? And we've raised an idea that I don't know if Jack and I have actually manifested yet, but when an issue comes up, if we can sort of ping the precinct that it's related to and have the town meeting representatives communicate that to their neighbors, especially projects that are going to affect abutters. No one was that interested in 3A communities until we suggested we put some of the density near Wedgemere, and then we met all of the neighbors, and they were so interested in all of the factors. It's true, you can't keep track of the entire town, and the bylaws are not in and of themselves a fascinating Instagram follow. And so it's a matter of having materials prepared and having an understanding over time of the work itself, and that's it takes time to understand, but being ready to sort of reach that information across the aisle when somebody's interested in grabbing it. And so it's just bringing it to the different neighborhoods. Co-Urbanize, which I think is something Nick touched on, was a tech tool that it's just expensive, but it was a really awesome way during the master plan process for neighbors to pin things and say, I have concerns here, what are solutions that we can have here? So those are just a couple of things.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Next question. What changes in the design, review, and permitting process would you propose to reduce delay and uncertainty for developers? Ms. Belleville, 90 seconds.
I think streamlining what is in the bylaw, making it easier to digest, making it more clear, more concise. These are things that are absolutely acceptable. These are things that are absolutely not acceptable. Clarity makes things easier for everyone. Developers don't want to guess as to what Winchester wants and what Winchester will approve, and I don't believe that the planning board wants to have to say no through meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting and kind of finagle with and negotiate everything because it just wasn't clear. I think that's it. Lack of clarity just kind of wastes everyone's time, and I think that if we make what our intention are as a town clear to the development community, they will respond hopefully with clear proposals that align to our values. It doesn't benefit really anyone financially or from a time saving perspective to have projects proposed that just don't fit in with what the town wants.
Thank you. Ms. Layton, same question.
So we worked really hard to resolve some of those problems when we did the North Main zoning. And what we did was we asked the developers to have a pre-application meeting with the neighbors to get a sense of what concerns the neighbors would have, to throw out kind of this is what the building will look and feel like. And we kind of tiered it so the by right zoning is very explicit. The design guidelines are fairly explicit. So if somebody's bringing a by right project, it's much easier to get it through. And we were a bit more explicit in what we wanted to see in those parcels. And we're seeing that juxtaposed with a project coming through the CBD right now that doesn't have a couple of those steps in place and had some less defined pieces that we're having to haggle back and forth. It's tricky because we're out of step. The planning board is meeting at least twice a month. And design review is meeting once a month, and we're getting recommendations kind of out of step with each other. So communicating across the bodies is very difficult. The process that we put in place on North Main, and we're working on manifesting a piece of the CBD that was under leveraged, which is I'm going to blank on it, CBDRS, which is a group of sort of sub-quorum committee members that come together and raise the concerns for each of their bodies in one meeting so that they can represent the group without needing to get through the voting process, and then they go back to their committees. So there's some sort of just choreography that can improve the process, and continuing to build that out is really helpful.
Thank you. Mr. Rossetto, same question.
If you would just
Please.
refresh my memory.
What changes in the design, review, and permitting process would you propose to reduce delay and uncertainty for developers?
So you know, in my experience, one of the delays that we frequently ran into was having design review committee kind of get all the information almost after the fact. And so they kind of felt slighted, like why weren't we included? And then all of their recommendations kind of added an increased delay. And I think that it is well within our ability to kind of get these things in front of them right away. And you know, even have a representative meet directly with the developer and say, look, this is how we can really get this done. These are some suggestions. As Carrie mentioned, have a pre-meeting so that they everyone has an idea and knowledge of what to expect from a design standpoint. So I think we just need to coordinate. As the liaison to the design review committee, I attend their meetings and I know their members, and so that's something that I certainly can do, is to make sure that they are getting the information soon and they get their information back to developers in time so as not to hold up the process.
Thank you. Last question. How can the known impacts of climate change factor into the planning board's recommendations to preserve existing open spaces and contribute to a more walkable and bikeable Winchester? Ms. Layton, you have 90 seconds.
Ooh, another one I would like a lot more time for. This is something else that we worked into the North Main zoning. We tried to pay close attention to making sure that we're
No heckling.
I would like to bring ow, Nick. I would like to reclaim that time. So we are working to make sure that there are tree plantings in large parking lots. We've worked to increase the depth of the sidewalks to 12 feet so that there's space to put wells to improve trees. Our sustainability director is incredible, and if there's not a reason for him to interact with the developer, we just sort of let them. We just kind of make sure that he's interacting to make sure that we're pursuing the highest tier of passive housing, which we passed in Winchester anyway. You know, we're encouraging things like rain gardens and, you know, different pieces of landscaping that encourage native plantings. We work very closely with the Permanent Street Tree Committee, which I was the liaison to make sure that we're choosing native species, that we're choosing trees that are appropriate for wire heights and for really thriving in the areas that we're putting them in. And then we're requiring EV charging stations, bike parking, and working on always improving the bike path and the ways to maneuver around town without using a car to get everywhere. I could go on for days, but I'm going to wrap up there.
Thank you. Mr. Rossetto, same question. Would you like me to repeat?
Yes, please.
How can the known impacts of climate change factor into the planning board's recommendations to preserve existing open spaces and contribute to a more walkable and bikeable Winchester?
I guess I'd like to just start by my experience living in New York City in an apartment where you walked everywhere. I have recollection of biking down 6th Avenue, and I always beat any taxi trip, and I always beat every subway trip to whatever destination it was on the island. And I was in the best shape of my life. We recently approved a development, our first development on North Main Street, and that occurred at the Meineke building. And we have this building, and we really love the massing, but we were thinking, well, the windows they don't quite have the stylistic, they weren't double hung, you know, four paned glass. And the architect says, well, the windows that we have are casement, and that's because they work with the passive heating and energy savings. And so we compromised and we said, look, that's kind of more important in this case, to have the windows that allow for and overall the building is great. It's got beautiful massing, it's got a beautiful roof shape, it's kind of an English country style reminiscent of, I don't know if it's the house on the river on the lake on Dix that has that roof style, and it does a lot of great things architecturally. But we were sensitive to the fact that those windows will save energy, and we would like to continue to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Beliveau, how can the known impacts of climate change factor into the Planning Board's recommendations to preserve existing open spaces and contribute to a more walkable and bikeable Winchester?
I think that as we develop our neighborhoods and as we develop neighborhoods that have more density, having the wider sidewalks, having bike accessibility, adding bike racks kind of just in general around town. I see kids biking to the corner of Cambridge and Church and High Street trying to get to Ambrose, and the poor things are like hauling their bikes up the hill. Like, do we put a bike rack at the bottom to help with that? And I think there's probably reasons we don't, but looking around town to say where are there opportunities for adding the amenities we need to encourage walking, to encourage biking. I took a walk sometime around the flats, and there isn't a single bench in the flats, so we could look at putting benches around, so if people are walking and, like me, get tired, want to sit down, and they can sit and look. I also think from a walkability and a accessibility standpoint, some kind of shuttle would be really great, just to keep the number of cars kind of off the street. It helps reduce parking, it helps reduce emissions, so having access via a shuttle to the more business-centric commercial areas of town from other parts of town will help with that as well. And from a climate change standpoint, I think leveraging the experts in that field. We have the ability to talk to people in town that have that expertise, and we should be leveraging that knowledge.
Thank you. We will now ask the candidates for closing statements. Candidates will speak in reverse order from the opening statements. You will have up to 60 seconds each. Ms. Layton, we'll begin with you.
Thank you again for hosting this debate, and thank you to both of you for reinvigorating my love of the planning board after a tough couple of days. You know, between the Conservation Commission and the planning board, the thing that I love working on and thinking about in town is, you know, if we take a tree down, if we plant a tree, if we put a building up, we've changed the town, we've changed the experience of living in this town for the next 50, 100, 200 years. And we want to always make those changes very thoughtfully. I hope that I have been a town servant who has listened to people and always done my best to make a balanced vote. I'm an incumbent. There's a mortifying number of hours of me on WinCamp, so you should hold me accountable, but I hope that you will trust me for another 3 years.
Thank you. Ms. Beliveau.
Again, I also want to thank my fellow candidates, WinCam, Jenks, the League of Women Voters, and everyone who submitted your questions for tonight's debate. I hope that after hearing my answers tonight, you have learned that I believe we can balance historical aesthetic with growth, providing housing and commercial spaces for our residents that they want and need. I want to encourage development that features high quality, design-centric, and historically appropriate architecture, develop housing of all types from market rate to affordable, and focus on mixed-use commercial and light industrial where possible. I'm excited by the work of updating the master plan and the zoning bylaw where applicable, and believe that implementing a robust design review process will be key in balancing our growth with historic preservation. If elected to the planning board in March, voters are adding someone who will put in the work to apply their industry and town-wide experience to ensure the town's goals are met and its values are honored. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosettos.
Thank you. As a current board member, I feel I'm part of a strong, experienced committed team. The current planning board team members complement one another in important ways. Currently, we have a developer, an engineer, a former Conservation Commission member, among other skills. Losing any of those team members could adversely affect our ability to complete reviews already in progress, particularly in the areas of achieving architectural harmony and preserving downtown character, areas in which I excel. I understand what it takes to move complex projects forward and have the discipline to follow through in advancing Winchester's goals. My allegiance is to Winchester and its residents, not any special interests. I view service on the planning board as a serious responsibility and a public trust. I just want to add that I feel that I am the real historic downtown character candidate. I'm the real Nick Rosettos. I'm the one going to fight for that balance. I'm the one that has the passion and the knowledge that will bring the beautiful structures that will legitimize and popularize affordable housing options.
Thank you. Please thank our candidates for participating in this debate.
Well, thank you, candidates, for showing commitment to our community and by running for public office, and also for participating in our debate. To conclude this evening's event, I would also like to express the League's thanks to the members of the public who sent us your suggestions for debate questions, to Winchester News for working closely with us to get election information to the voters, to the Cummings Foundation for generously supporting this event, to the Jenks Center for collaborating with us on the use of this space, to WinCam for recording the event and making the live stream and recording available to the public, to the town clerk's office and the election workers for organizing a safe, orderly, and inclusive election, to a number of League volunteers who help plan, publicize, and carry out these debates, as well as compile the online candidate information. And mostly, we thank you, the voters, for exercising your right to vote and having your voice be heard. The deadline to register to vote is Wednesday, March 11th. The deadline to apply for a vote-by-mail ballot is Monday, March 16th at 5 p.m., and an absentee ballot Friday, March 20th at noon. Early voting in person will begin at Town Hall on Saturday, March 14th, and continue Monday through Friday, the week of March 16th. Election Day voting will be at Winchester High School from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday, March 21st. So you're welcome to stay for a short time after we adjourn to mingle with neighbors and candidates. We also invite you to return next Thursday, March 5th, to continue meeting the candidates and to listen to the school committee and select board debates. Thank you. Have a good evening.